All right.
Dollar strength, what's new?
Yeah, we did have a Japanese rate hike. So we saw it as expected. The Japanese, again, it was between 9 and midnight. I think it came out close to midnight. I tried to stay up till 9:15, and I was just like falling asleep in my chair. It's like, this isn't going to work. But they, when was it around? It looks like around 10 o'clock. Okay. They did raise rates by 25 basis points as expected, which would cause dollar yen to fall a little bit. But the statement and it didn't fall much. Again, 30 pips, 40 pips. Then the central bank governor came out and gave a very balanced statement that they have no further hikes on the horizon, but they will be watching inflation. And inflation, I mean, he's saying the obvious. Inflation starts to gain steam, they'll look at possibly hiking more. Mm-hmm. So very balanced, very neutral. And net, what do we get? We get a move from, at its best, 155 to 156. So you got about a 100 pip move back and down. We're right back there. So, and I think your takeaway of, oh, we're higher again. So we got the rate hike they promised. Again, if they didn't hike rates, we probably would have seen 159 or 160. But the fact is they hiked, which was expected. Mm-hmm. They tried the market a little bit lower. It didn't spend. And when I look at this, it spent no time down there. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, it was super brief.
And him talking about it just marched it right back up to the upper end of the range. So,
and that's when you have to watch and pay attention to what they're saying in the news about it, because it's like you could read a headline that, you know, says the dollar fell this morning against the yen, and you're like, oh, and then you actually look at the charts and the price action and you realize that was more of kind of just a momentary shift.
Absolutely. That was the headline-driven reaction the market takes. Now, there are players in the market who, and this is not our game, who build models that read the news headlines, and if it says cut, they try to sell dollar yen, and just with the idea of buying it back in the same couple of seconds. We're never going to see that headline and be able to act on it. What we want to do is think about, okay, I've got movement. Yen's down 100 pips. Really was a nothing statement. Do I want to be long? It's a tough call at the upper end of the range. What you'd want to see is, if that were the case, you'd want to see it trade down here and just sit here for a while. Mm-hmm. And then maybe it does roll over. The fact that it just really didn't take much time at all for it to, again, congest at these levels and march its way back up tells me that, number one, it was a non-event, and it certainly was no way a bearish event for dollar yen, considering that we're hugging well into this upper end of the range here. So nothing particularly there to watch. Euro actually holding on. We had a good night last night. Some of the commentary out of the president was friendly to China, so we've seen things like
I also believe the ECB president, I remember it was something around, she was pleased with his decision to kind of slow his tariff process down with them or something like that. I couldn't quote it directly, but it looks like that maybe moving a little bit slower.
Right. And it was, I had a good discussion with China, and that gave Aussie a little bit of a boost. So we're seeing, we've tried the up and down on the headlines a couple of times, Monday, Tuesday. Let's get out of the daily, get a little bit more granular. That might be too granular. Let's go to hourly. We saw this back and forth and bottoming. Now we got, towards the end of the day, we got a little pop in Aussie, some follow-on movement through the end of the evening, and we're holding on to the upper end of that range. So we're starting to see some constructive tape action.
Yeah.
We're only 100 points off the lows. We look at New Zealand, same thing there. Nice movement. We were sub.
Looks like similar to the Aussie almost.
Yeah.
Pattern-wise.
We were, sub 56 very briefly. We've put 100 pips into the market, but remember, looking at the daily, if we just go back to November, we were close to 60 cents, 61 cents. So two-way action, trading above the week's range kind of here. That's got to bring in anybody who's been a seller down here on these lows is now being put to the challenge a little bit. So from looking at it from a tape action standpoint, it's kind of a market that has two-way opportunity, which is great. If we were back down here, I'd be saying if you're buying it just because it's cheap, because the tape action is not telling you there's a lot of other people interested in seeing this turn around. So it will be interesting to see if we take today to stretch its legs a little bit back above 157.5. And if we close up there, I would imagine Sunday we'll probably see the market a little bit higher. We're still subject to the vagaries of our new president saying something, but again, the doom and gloom around everybody's getting 25% and everybody's getting it right away seems to come off. Has it for Canada? A little bit. And let's go back to a little bit shorter time frame there.
Would you say that even Trump's statements, or any president for that matter, their statements can affect price action? Like, I'm not saying official things, but like saying they're going to do something.
Absolutely.
Do you think that can affect the markets too?
Absolutely. And that's when we go back and we look at down here, tariffs are coming. Down here, maybe not so fast. Here again, he was at a different event. Tariffs are coming. What's interesting though is that again, I want to be careful when I say bullet, just that using that soundbite, markets you get this kind of reaction, and then markets kind of get numb to it. And again, talked a little bit about tariffs on the way down here yesterday. And that, less inclined to do it. But the T word will now continue to have less of a diminished effect on this. So every time he mentions it, they're like, okay, we've heard this 5 times now. He's going to do it. He's not going to do it.
Right.
And you're not going to get 70 pips down, 100 pips up. So the usefulness of that trying to jerk markets around a little bit is going to be a little less imperative. The one thing that's interesting is where we're seeing it play through the most is the most consistent shakeout here has been peso. Peso's giving back a good amount of ground here. So structurally, anybody who bought it up here post-election and everything is having or post-inauguration is having a little bit of a challenge with it right now. We're down to about 20 pesos to the dollar. We haven't seen these levels since we kind of broke through them in November to start. We broke through it, gave back a lot of ground to trade below it, and then kind of ground back up. So peso's turning around a little bit. Interesting to see if that continues. And again, when there's talk of tariffs in Canada, there's still the talk of tariffs across the border too. So a little bit of that being baked out in terms of, I think as of Friday, we've had a pretty busy Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Yesterday was a little less so. Friday will be an interesting day to see, do we roll back over? And if we do, it means the dollar's still got some strength to it. But if we hold these levels and go into the end of the day, pushing up a little bit, it means there's probably a little bit more correction coming into the market. And maybe we could see a 106. So you want to kind of watch for that. What I love is that this starts to give you some structure. Pick your poison, Aussie. This starts to give you, okay, traded range is right here, right now. We're at the upper end of it. If it extends, what could I look for? Well, you could look for a trade up to that next level, 164. If I'm wrong, where am I wrong? Probably back down in the middle of this range, 62.5. All right, so I've just said, if I want to be bullish and I think the bottom's in, I now have a trade where if I start to get a little bit long here, if it holds on to these levels for a little bit of time, I know where I want to manage it if I've got a winner. I know where I want to manage it if I've got a loser. If I want to trade the other side, and I think, okay, the box is held, the market's going to roll over. If you sell them here, you kind of know what you're looking for is a retracement back to the lows. And if you're wrong, it's probably that first leg up here, either 63.5 or 64. The trade setups for you are much clearer than when we're looking at just down, down, down every day. And where do I get out if I'm wrong, if I'm being a contrarian? So I like to see the two-way tape action. Not only does it put a little risk on both sides of both people's hands, longs and shorts, gives you a little bit better market structure as a new or experienced trader to start to find, okay, where are levels of opportunity for me?
Yeah, and that's like kind of that's definitely a learning curve for sure, kind of setting those in your head.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're newer.
And again, I prattle those off. That's just what I see. Everybody else needs to find the levels that are comfortable for them.
Totally.
But it works. And there's a lot of tools on the platform to help you do that. There's a lot on tastyfx. Check out the website. There's things like auto charts that will give you all kinds of indicators and tools. So if you want to start your learning and start diving into these products a little bit, there's a lot of resources out there to help you. But that's it for us this week. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning in. Bridgette, thanks so much for being on. I love having you. Everybody loves having you on.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, have a great weekend, guys. We'll see you back here Monday morning at 6:30.
Bye.